Okay, so in this video we're going to take it one step further. So let's just recap. If you haven't seen the previous video, it was on the correlation coefficient and it was static, right? So we set 1 year time frame and then we compiled the code and we got a correlation coefficient between like the two stocks, two securities. For example, this one, not for example, this one and the one stated in get external symbol, right? But the next step is to take and look at a dynamic correlation coefficient. And how you do that? Very easy. Well, not very easy, but so basically the correlation coefficient changes all the time, right? And you can actually measure it dynamically based on the period, right? So you can look back 100 bars, I don't know, 1,000 bars, 200 bars, whatever, how many bars you want, and set the correlation coefficient, right? See the correlation coefficient. So for example, right now I'm looking back 400 bars, and I'm actually looking at the correlation coefficient between two securities on the Russian stock exchange. Okay, so that's how it's done. So like for example, if we're looking at the two same securities here, SBRF and RTS, right? And if we look at the static one, right, it will show us 0.86 over the period of time, which is pretty much true. But if we look at a dynamic one with a period of 400, we can see that it actually goes down to 0.4, 0.3 sometimes. So it's not all the time. It's not correlated all of the time, right? So that's some pretty useful information that you can use whilst designing your strategies, right? So now let's look at the code and I'll show you how I did that. So, well, let me just go in the Visual Studio because it's much neater here. Okay, so everything is the same. We set the strategy parameter just the same way as we do with the strategy. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, please check out my Wealth Lab basic coding courses on tradealgo.com. Anyway, so we set the period here, right, in the strategy parameters, and the period we bring it into value int here, and then we get the bars. So same stuff, right? The only thing that changed here is the method, like that we used in the previous example, right, where we calculated the static correlation coefficient, right? Okay, so right now it's a void, right? So we're gonna actually plot, create a chart pane and plot the indicator inside the method. So we pass the period into the method, and we also pass the two data series, right? So we pass the close prices of security 1 and close prices of security 2. Inside the method, we create an empty data series. And guys, when you create a data series, there are two constructors, actually three constructors. And if you just create an empty one with no size, right, so with no data series object and with no bars object, it's going to give you an error when you're going to try to fill it, right? So if you want to create in Wealth Lab, create a data series and fill it up with data, create it with a size, right, with an object, with the bars object inside, or with an X with a data series object inside, right? So in our case, we were just creating another data series, which is going to be the size of the data series that we pass into the method. Yeah, it's going to be the size of the number of bars that we have, right? Okay, so first thing we do, and now I'm going to draw a little bit. So we're going to fill it up, right? So we're going to be looking at, so for example, here are our bars, right? And here's this bar 0, right? And we have our period, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say this is 5, whatever. Okay, so we want to look at this, at these bars first. And after that, we're going to be looking at these bars, right? And after that, we're going to be looking at these bars, and so on and so on and so on. So like for example, in the static method, we just took the whole data series for like 1 year and we looked at it all, and we just calculated the correlation coefficient one time. and this time, and that's why this strategy running this correlation coefficient indicator is going to be a little bit more memory consuming, because it's going to be calculating the correlation coefficient every single bar. On every single bar is going to go back the number of bars the period is stating, and is going to calculate the correlation coefficient between the two securities. All right, so first of all, we go and fill up the data series, right, for the bars that are actually before the bar that we land on when we start calculating, right? So our first bar where we get the correlation coefficient value is going to equal 0, where the series starts, plus the period, right? So before that, everything correlation indicator is going to equal to 0, right? So we fill it up, yeah. So we fill it up. So from 0 to period, we fill it up with 0 values, and after that, from period minus 1, yeah, because we're starting with 0 here. So basically 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we have to subtract 1. So from after that, from period until the end of the series, we do our calculations, right? And now, well, after that, it's everything is, well, you've seen this code before. It's just it's a little bit different, because on every bar now we have to run back, right? So in every bar, whenever a new bar happens, we run back the number of bars equaling the period. We run back, take all of these values into these lists, right? So first of all, because, well, I mean, that's the only way. We have to work with lists here, or like some kind of objects. Anyway, I decided to use lists. So if we create just lists, yeah. So we collect our close prices for security 1, security 2 into lists, then multiples, right? So we multiply the two values of close prices, we get a list of squared values, and we get a list of squared values for the other security. And after we did a run through on every bar, right? Well, after we did a run through the previous bars, right, we calculate the sums, right? So if you look at the method, at what we did before, right? So we just ran through the whole data series, right? And then we during the run through, yeah, we kind of summed up values, right? Because we could multiply data series here, right? We don't have that option in this case, because we first have to collect that data series. So in this case, I decided just to use the list, because it has some wonderful methods called sum and other stuff, right? So in our case, we just need the sum, right? So after we collect the data, then we just sum up using link, right? Using system.link. All right. So in order to use sum, you need to be using system link, right? So it's make sure you got that referenced. It's right here. It's in the system .core DLL. It's correlation. Okay. So. And after that, it's just about the same stuff. I mean, on every bar, we just use the same formula. We calculate the coefficient, and we stick it into the data series right here. And then we plot the data series after we cycle through the whole thing, right? That's it. And that's what you get here. Your correlation graph up there, all right? I guess that's about it for the code. Hope that was useful. Download it on the website, no problem.